All right, welcome back. So it's been a few days since I've done a video, maybe a week or so, and this one's prompted by another video I was watching on YouTube about how Americans are viewed in other countries and that type of thing. And so I thought, some people have asked, why do I go to Cuba as an American? And I thought about it, and I don't know, you might find the reasons interesting. Some may be obvious, some not. So let's get always. I do a watch check. Beautiful Seiko Ananta. You can't really see the Ananta on there. That's a chronograph. Seiko makes some really great watches, as I've expounded on before. Really great boots, Lucchese, alligator belly, and I don't know who the dog was there making the noise. Sounded like Liza, but it wasn't. So we're gonna dig into the Euro Cave, and here comes a couple of curious puppies, and they're like, "Oh no, he's doing another video. I don't want to do that." So I'm also going to review kind of a run-of-the-mill Cuban cigar. You hear a lot about the Partagas D number 4, but don't hear a whole lot about sort of the run-of-the-mill Partagas or the Selección Privada. So I do have some of the D4s in here somewhere, but this is the one I want to review. Now that's an Upman. Let's find it here. Here it is. So I haven't smoked one for a while. If I can focus in. So this is the Selección Privada. It's a smaller Partagas, kind of a Robusto size, and you can pick these up. These are pretty cheap, under $5 range or so in Cuba. And so let's talk about it, whether it's any good. So why, as an American, do I go to Cuba? Well, there's several reasons, and I did write some down because I didn't want to miss a few of the things. But there's really two main reasons I go. One is for very selfish reasons, to go there, to enjoy myself and a number of other things. And then the other is really I'm going as an American and doing somewhat of a cultural exchange. The history between the two countries has been a little bit jaded, I guess, and so maybe on both sides there's been some propaganda and so forth. So I think it's good to share some cultural exchange of ideas. But the first area is the selfish reasons. So I'll get those out of the way first. They're pretty basic. Cuba is a beautiful country, so it's a great place to go. It's cheap, incredibly cheap to go. The beauty of the beaches and all of that are nicer than South Florida, and about a third of the cost or less of what anything would cost you in South Florida. So it is, selfish reasons. It's beautiful. It's cheap. These things, cigars. Yeah, I go there. I like Cuban cigars, so I'll go there and smoke cigars, cigars that I can't readily get in the States. The food's fantastic in Cuba. I've heard people say that that's a negative. I don't think so. The food's great, especially if you love seafood and lobster. It's cheap, it's great, it's fresh, fantastic. Nostalgia, it's like going back in time. You're back there, you see all those cars from the 50s and, the culture and so forth. So it is, like time travel in some ways. So, and then, the people really make Cuba what it is. They're very, very nice, friendly, accommodating. I've met some great people And then the last thing would be safety. It's very safe. It's a safe country, far safer to go than Mexico. And so, those are sort of the selfish reasons why I go. But maybe more importantly, I go as an American because I know I have this great privilege of being an American. And I don't say that in a way to say that I think I'm better than Cubans are, or that one just because where you're born makes you better than anyone else. I don't believe that. I think we're all created by God, and we're we shouldn't view our status as especially just by the mere lucky virtue of where we were born. But there's a certain privilege to being an American that I have that a lot of other people around the world don't have. And I can share some of that by going to Cuba. So I'll elaborate on that in a minute. Just a second on this Partagas. Great draw. It lit up perfectly. It's a mild to medium cigar. You can see lots of great smoke. It's got that beautiful, that sandy, smooth, creamy Cuban tobacco taste. This is a decent. I didn't measure the ring gauge, but I'm going to say this is, probably a 50 ring gauge. Right around there, maybe 4.5 inches long. So it's a smaller cigar, but really good, nice, good draw. So, back on that idea of the privilege of being an American. So, it's one thing just to have the privilege to be able to travel and to take vacations or time off and go, and a lot of people don't have that. But, I think the Cuban people, they appreciate the money spent there and the time you spend there more than other places. Like, I certainly love the United States. There's many beautiful places to visit here. And I visited almost all 50 states. So I don't just go to Cuba. I've just certainly traveled around the states and seen all the beautiful diversity in this country, from the people to the mountainsides, the Rocky Mountains, Grand Canyons, to the beaches in Maine and Florida and the out west in California. It's just an incredible country. But I can go and it's like, it's just tourism dollars. And no matter where I go, it's I don't know that my dollars are making much of a difference. And I'm not saying that I make a world of difference by going to Cuba, but it does seem like they greatly appreciate it. They need it more. And I think it's money well spent for the people there, because they don't have as many opportunities there. And so that's one piece. I think also I usually take things that we as Americans take for granted, our access to medicines and technology and clothing. I can go to any supermarket down the road, any what we call the Dollar General, the dollar stores, and I can pick up Tylenol. I can pick up Cordaid cream if I have a rash. I can pick up all kinds of things. People in other countries, and especially in Cuba, they don't have access to that. So I always bring Tylenol. I bring things like Cordaid, Rolaids or Tums or things for the stomach that they just can't, they're cheap for us to get. They're readily available here, and they're not there, and they really do appreciate it. And I'll share a quick story. Like, one of my friends that I met in Cuba, his wife had just undergone a hysterectomy, and he said that the machine broke, so they don't have access as much to the medical technology as we do. So they had, instead of doing a laparoscopic procedure where they would just go in less intrusive through a small hole, they had to cut her stomach open to do this. They didn't have adequate pain medicines. So she was in severe pain. And I just happened, I come and obviously I brought Tylenol, and I can't, imagine for that severe pain only taking Tylenol, but I had that. But I also had these things that I brought on a whim, I guess. They're called Salonpas. They're the lidocaine patches that kind of help with pain. You put them on an afflicted area, and he broke down and started crying, literally crying when he saw that. And he said, "You don't know what a difference this is going to make to my wife." Now, these things were not, they're not prescription based. They were just over the counter that I think I got at Sam's Club. And, again, I think here we would have taken, and we would have had much more better pain relief options. But for them, this was, sort of life-changing in the moment for her to have access to that. So just taking things, the privilege of American that we have so much access to things. Technology, I bring, when walk around at night there, so I bring these, I got it over there, it's just a headlamp, and it's a rechargeable headlamp, so I can walk around at night. I take the dogs out, but when I go travel, I usually take that, and some of the hosts at an Airbnb, they were just amazed by the fact that this didn't use batteries. It was chargeable like my phone. And so I had two of them. I gave them to them, when I left, and it was just things they don't have access to at the stores to pick up, things that can be really, one of my taxi drivers, he said, "Hey, if you're coming again, I have a friend, he's a security guard, and, he'd love a radio, just a radio that he could get, with an antenna, and hear the news or hear music or something as he's sitting all night, And I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." They're cheap, readily available, but for the Cubans, it just wasn't. And so, you bring things, I bring old computer parts, DVDs, things that I don't even use anymore, and they have great use for them. They're really appreciative. So some of the privilege of an American that I have access to things, I try to share some of that while I'm going for my own selfish reasons to Cuba. Cigar stuff, butane lighters, there are some, but their quality of butane is terrible. The lighters aren't great. The Boveda packs, that we store our cigars in to keep them humidified. They don't need as much humidification over there as we do, certainly, but that was something that, was really interesting when I showed it. It's like, wow, how do you get those? I mean, we have access to Amazon. I can get anything, Many Cubans, they've told me before, one of their dreams would be like to go into a Home Depot or a Walmart just to see the access to things that they don't have. Clothing, I mentioned that. We take for granted the access to all the clothing that we get. And I'm talking about, like my one taxi driver, he said, "Hey, he's got a skin condition, so the shirts that we can get that have sort of that sun protection on them, even ones that really appreciate it, even if it's something you've worn already. The Crocs that we get that make it easy to walk around, they don't have access to that type of thing. And so, you can bring some of that stuff, and you can tell it really makes their day, and, hopefully in a small way makes a difference, to them. I mentioned like the cultural exchange of ideas. I think it's always good to travel, to interact, to get to know other people from other cultures. The cigar is very good, by the way. I'm talking too much, which is why I have to relight it. The cultural exchange, the ideas. I learned a lot about, they talk about, we know politically, right, Cuba is supposedly a communist system. Most of the people I've met over there are more capitalistic than most Americans I know. They work multiple jobs. they barter, they exchange, they understand the value of work. So I can learn from them as they're learning from me, but we can also talk about things like civil rights and what it means. What does that mean per se? What does it mean to have a living wage? Those type of things. What about the education system? We can share values we have in common. Family and friendship, cooking. Shared philosophies. Those things are always break down barriers. My Spanish is terrible. It's getting better, but they help me with my Spanish for sure. Cars. We talk about cars, old cars, and just the interesting things. And then, of course, new friends. I've met so many new friends in Cuba, and when I go back, I try to meet up with some of them that I've met. Reconnect, and then really. Every time I go there, it's something new. There's a new experience, that I have. I meet new people, and it expands my life, and hopefully I expand theirs a little bit. And I go different places when I've gone there. Usually if I take people who haven't been before, we'll do the tour of Havana and that type of thing. But, I usually travel outside somewhere else. I went to see the Bay of Pigs, where that's at. They call that Giron. Vinales, the tobacco farms, the beautiful Mogote Mountains. Of course, Veradero, the incredible beach. Those type of things. Always something new to do there. It's a huge country, so there's lots of options. So those are some of the reasons that I go to Cuba as an American. And I guess lastly I would say, and it relates to that time travel, I mean, who knows? It is one of the few places that is still sort of untouched by some of the we overdo it in America with our capitalism and our marketing and advertising and our consumerism culture. It has its benefits for sure, but it's kind of nice to get away from that a little bit. And you can get away from that by going to a place like Cuba. It's one of the few places I think still left that you can get away from that. They don't have the drug epidemic that we have here. They don't have the gun violence that we have here. So, and again, I'm not suggesting that I go to Cuba because I think it's better than America. I mean, I think we live in the greatest country in the world in the United States, and we have access and privilege like I talked about. But again, I don't go also saying that I'm better than them. I'm going for all of these reasons, selfish and cultural, to enjoy. And so far, hopefully it remains open and we can go. So I'll continue to do so, hopefully continue to share that with other family members and friends so they can enjoy that experience too. So I didn't talk too much about this cigar. Other than it's very good. I don't know where I'd put it in my spectrum. I'd say it's around a 90 point scale of a cigar. Nice, again, kind of a mild, medium, creamy, good Cuban cigar. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon.